In the first lecture, we had seen the concepts of amalgamation, absorption, and external reconstruction, and we had also gone through the concepts of which companies are called as the vendor company and which companies are called as the purchasing company. In today's lecture, let us try to understand the concepts of purchase consideration. What are the various methods which are to be used for ascertaining this purchase consideration? Let us try to understand that in depth. The importance of this concept, the practical aspects of using this particular concept, we will try to understand in today's lecture. Thank you very much. Thank you. Then we come to the next very crucial aspect. See, in the case of amalgamation, absorption or external reconstruction, the most important aspect for this transaction to happen is the purchase consideration. No transaction can take place without a valid consideration. We have studied that in our SYBCom law paper. Consideration is needed for any transaction to get through. So, an important transaction like amalgamation, absorption or external reconstruction cannot take place without the purchase consideration. So, if we need to define purchase consideration, what is purchase consideration? The purchase consideration is a consideration which is paid by the purchasing company to the vendor company. Naturally, who will pay the consideration? It is the purchaser who is going to pay the consideration. So, it's a consideration which is paid by purchasing company to the vendor company. For what? There should be some transactions. They are not going to pay it free of cost. For business of the vendor company is taken over. So, since you are taking over the business of the vendor company, the consideration is paid to them, and that consideration is called as your purchase consideration. Remember, student, this is a very crucial aspect. That means if you calculate your PC, I can tell you, you can get 1/3 of the marks whatever is allotted to the question. Moreover, the effect of PC is given everywhere, so you get additional marks also. From the point of view of your theoretical aspect also, this becomes a very important question. They can ask you a short note on purchase consideration. So how are you going to construct your answer? The first part is you are going to give a brief explanation as to what is purchase consideration. Consideration paid by purchasing company to the vendor company for the takeover of business of the vendor company. This is the thing. Then substantiate it with the help of a small example. For example, if A Limited is taking over B Limited, then consideration will be paid by A Limited to B Limited. Okay, so that is the purchase consideration. Now comes the next part as to how will you calculate the amount of PC. There are three methods. We have done this at our SYBCom level, where we had studied a method which was net asset method. So that is one of the method of calculating the PC. There are two other methods, that is your lump sum method and net payments method. So whenever you are going to solve any question on amalgamation, the first step is calculate the PC. For that, you will first see whether the PC can be ascertained by lump sum method. In case of a lump sum method, the amount of PC is directly given to you in the problem. No calculation needs to be done. Okay, let us come back to our same example of Tata Steel and Bhushan Steel. When the business of Bhushan Steel is taken over, Tata Steel will just say, we take over your business for 5 crores. That's the end of it. We don't look into your balance sheet, we don't look into your assets, we don't look into your liabilities. According to us, your business value is 5 crore rupees. If you accept it, go ahead. Or if you do not accept it, then let us call it off. Let this deal be called off. So when a dominating company purchases another company, they may dictate their terms. They may say, okay, this is the value of your business that we have ascertained. So let us pay the PC accordingly. Let us pay the PC to the extent of whatever we feel right. That is your lump sum method. In case of the next method, that is your net payments method, that means now coming to the practical aspects. If the problem does not specify the amount of PC in the PC, then you have to search for the next method, that is your net payment method. In the net payment method, the details of payments which are received from the purchasing company are clearly stated in the problem. Okay, let us try to understand this with the help of an example. For example, see, if A Limited takes over B Limited and A Limited decides to issue 6,000 equity shares of ₹10 each at par, then also decide to issue 5,000 9% preference shares of rupees 100 each at par, and over and above that they decide to give a cash of rupees 50,000 to the vendor company. Now in this case, students, can we not ascertain what is the total payment that you are receiving from the purchasing company? Take for example, they have issued 6,000 equity shares of rupees 10 each at par. So number of shares into the face value per share, you will get the amount, or we can put it in this word, the issue price per share. Here the issue price is the most important aspect. Fortunately over here the face value and the issue price is the same. So 6,000 into 10, 60,000 would be the amount which you are going to receive from your equity shares. Then 5,000 into 100, you are going to receive 5 lakhs from your preference shares. And then you are going to also receive cash of 50,000. So here, what will be the total amount of your PC? It would be 6,10,000. So when all the details of the payments which you are going to receive from the purchasing company are known to you, then in that case you have to just add up all those details and that will constitute the amount of your PC. Now here, as per the accounting standard 14, it is clearly stated that the satisfaction of PC can be made only and only by way of issue of shares and by payment in cash. What does it mean? That means if the debentures are issued to the debenture holders of the vendor company, they would not form part of your purchase consideration statement. The PC statement will comprise only and only the component of shares and cash. Shares can be both equity shares as well as preference shares, and cash can be paid to the shareholders. This is what will come in the cash, or in this digital era, you can say bank balance also. If some checks are issued or if the amount is transferred to their account, that will be forming part of your PC. This is your net payments method. When the details of all the payments which are made by the purchasing company to the vendor company are available in the problem, then just add up all those details and you will get the amount of PC. Okay? Just go through this example, you will come to know how the PC is to be calculated. Now, suppose if the details of payments are also not known, okay, let me give you an example for that. Suppose if they say that A Limited took over B Limited and they decided to issue equity shares of rupees 10 each at par. Now what can we make out of it? How many equity shares? Okay, it is not clearly specified in the problem. They are just saying, okay, this company is going to issue the, what are they saying? This company is going to issue the equity share. The purchasing company is going to issue the equity shares of rupees 10 each at par. How many equity shares? So can we ascertain the PC by lump sum method? No, because the amount of PC is not given to us in the problem. Can we ascertain the amount of PC as per the net payments method? No, because the details of payments are not known to us. Now in that case, what should be done? In that case, the PC needs to be calculated using the net asset method. Now when the PC is to be calculated using the net asset method, the formula which you have to adopt in order to calculate the PC as per the net asset method is agreed value of assets taken over less agreed value of liabilities taken over. Normally, whenever you subtract any item, it is better to put it in bracket so that you can realize that this item has to be deducted. Because at the time of examination, we are in pressure. So instead of subtracting the liabilities item, if you add, the entire answer will go wrong. It is agreed value of assets taken over minus agreed value of liabilities taken over. Now every word is important over here. Every word is important. What do you mean by agreed value? What is the meaning of this word agreed value? Agreed value is a value which has been agreed between the purchasing company and the vendor company. Example, suppose if there is a land which is appearing in the balance sheet of vendor company at rupees 5 lakhs. The land was purchased 10 years back. At that time the value of the land was 5 lakhs, acceptable. But all of you know that land is an appreciable asset. The value of the land goes on increasing. After 10 years, you are not going to get the land at 5 lakh rupees, though in the balance sheet it is available at 5 lakhs. Vendor company will definitely say, no, this land can be been sold to you, or this land can be handed over to you, but the price is now 3 crores. In 10 years, there is a exponential interest in the price of the land. So this land can be available to you at 3 crores. Both this company will come together, they will discuss, no, 3 crores is too high. See, a seller will always try to inflate the value of the asset, and the buyer will always try to find out the defects and try to deflate the value of the asset. So they mutually agree, okay, fine, it is not 5 lakhs, it is not 3 crores, let us take it at 2 crores 10 lakhs. So this is an agreed value, both the parties have agreed to that particular value. Similarly, for all the assets and all the liabilities, there will be a discussion between the purchasing company and vendor company, and then they agree to a particular value. Then the next important word is taken over. That means only those assets or those liabilities which are taken over will be considered while calculating the amount of PC. What does it mean? Suppose tomorrow there is an asset, say machinery, which is of no use to the purchasing company. The purchasing company will say, we are having our own sophisticated machinery. We do not need your machinery. So in that case, they will say, we are not taking over your machinery. So to that much extent, we will not pay you the amount of PC. Then the machinery is not taken over, so that will not come in this particular equation of agreed value of assets taken over. Similarly, there may be certain liabilities which the purchasing company may deny. Suppose there is a bank loan and there is a dispute which is going on between the bankers and the vendor company. The purchasing company will stay away from that. They will say that you settle your dispute, you pay the bank loan. We are not interested in taking over your bank loan. So that means the most important word over here is only those assets or those liabilities which are taken over by the purchasing company should be considered for the purpose of calculating the PC. Now coming to the from the angle of the students, what you should remember that in the problem, if they give you the revised amounts of assets and liabilities, then you have to consider the revised amounts. If the revised amounts are not given, then you should consider the book value or the balance sheet values. If the revised amounts are given, consider the revised values or whatever has been stated in the problem. But suppose if the problem is silent, then you should consider the balance sheet values. Then look out for those assets and liabilities which are taken over. That means in the problem they will specifically tell you that these assets or these liabilities are not taken over. If they tell you that these assets or these liabilities are not taken over, then forget it, they will not form part of your PC. But if the problem is silent, if the problem does not specify as to which assets or which liabilities are taken over, then you have to presume that all the assets and all the liabilities are taken over. Now there was a university problem. See how they test you. In a university problem, there was a case of amalgamation of companies. Two companies had amalgamated, and they had stated that assets of say one company is taken over at 90 crore of the book value. April 2005 problem. One company whose assets were taken over at 90 crore of the book value. Okay, they did not specify anything about the assets of the other company. Okay, students had just taken it that both the companies' assets are taken over at 90% of the book value, and a blunder occurred because the PC went wrong. Then they had asked the balance sheet went wrong, so the student lost like anything. So whenever you are attempting such type of problems, be very cautious, be calm, cool and collected. Read the problem very carefully. See what company's assets are taken over at what values, and if the assets are taken over at that particular value, just consider those values. So this is what we say about the net asset method. Okay, whenever they ask you a question on purchase consideration, they can ask you a question as to the short note on purchase consideration. Okay, when the short notes are asked, first explain what is PC, consideration paid by purchasing company to the vendor company for takeover of the business. Then also briefly explain about the methods of calculating the PC. Then you can give this examples of lump sum method, net payment method and net asset method. briefly give a small example to substantiate your answer. See, the detailed answer is not expected when a short note is being asked you. But there may be chances that this question can come to you as a full-fledged question. What do you mean by purchase consideration? What are the various methods which are used for calculating or asserting the PC? Then in that case, explain everything in detail, whatever we have discussed up till now, and then give the answer to that particular effect. And again, I am telling you, this becomes very important from the practical point of view also, because if a 15 marks question is asked you, believe me, at least 5 marks will be dedicated to your ascertainment of PC, and then its effects may go on everywhere, so that effects will also carry 1 or 2 marks. Okay. So this is what we have just taken into consideration. Happy learning to all of you. We will come up with more such videos in the near future. Thank you very much.